I think it is important that all people are concerned with the surveillance state that exists today. And I specifically think that what we can learn from Iran is that protesters, that is young students especially, who are protesting against, for example, anything, it is standard textbook case that the government collects individual identifiers, such as the ones that the cell phones carry that can't be changed. So you can change the SIM card, but the phone itself has an individual identifier. And if you switch the SIM card between phones, they become correlated. It is the case, especially in Iran, that they use this to round up people later. So they don't stop you there, they give you enough rope to hang yourself. And it's very important that people understand that the surveillance state overall makes it happen for all the places we go. Not just protests, but also protests. That is how you get their attention, and then they can retroactively look at the rest of the data that they have collected. There are different kinds of anonymity. So some key steps that people can take to try to retain their autonomy and to not just keep but sometimes reclaim anonymity. You should make sure that the systems that you use are run by people you trust, and maybe not corporations that are subject to laws where the laws, for example, say you have no right to know about what people do with your data. So I would prefer something like Crabgrass, run by the Rise Up people, over Facebook for organizing. I would use a system like Tor, an anonymity network, that makes it so that people who are watching your internet connection or who are watching entire countries' internet connections, so that they only record encrypted data going to an anonymity network when in any way, when it ties back to you. So your internet connection, which is tied to your name, be very careful about using that for anything online that you wouldn't want to be told about you later. So something like Tor can be very powerful. The Tor browser is an application you can download, and the things you do through it go through this anonymity network. So people don't know who you are or where you're coming from when you use this system. And when you then type in a login and password, well, then they may know who you are at that systems level, but they don't, again, know where you're coming from. And they only know that someone claims to be you. And the really nice thing is that someone watching you locally would not see that you were doing that at all. They wouldn't be able to tell where you were going or who you were talking to. That, I think, is a part of a sort of operational security culture that needs to be adopted. Also consider that your cell phone, your microphone on your cell phone might be turned on remotely. And it's extremely important to treat a cell phone as if it is Big Brother, which is to say, if you turn it off, it sounds like a great idea. If it really turns off, in the case of an iPhone where you can't remove the battery, you have to hope that when you power it down, it's really powering down. Really hard to check that assumption. So instead of powering it down, consider taking it and putting it in a room with some music playing instead, and leaving it there. And consider leaving your phone home a lot if you have to have one. And if you don't have to have one, consider not having one. Right? It's a tracking device for a global tracking network that also happens to make phone calls.